Rickshaw Girl, Chapter 8. One day, Father surprised them by coming home early for lunch. "The rickshaw's looking worse than ever," he said. "It's starting to rust. And Hassan's shop should be open for business by now. I'll go there today, and if it's open, I'll price the repairs." "But have you earned enough money, Father?" Naima asked, even though she knew the answer. The hut was quiet. Slowly, Mother eased a bangle over her hand and handed it to Father. He slipped the bangle inside his pocket and fastened the button Mother had sewn on his shirt to keep his earnings safe. Naima's stomach clenched like a fist. She wanted to shout, cry, rip the pocket open, and grab the bracelet, but she knew it was no use. Mother's graceful movements would never make music again, and it was all Naima's fault. Father cleared his throat. "I'll earn enough money to buy another bangle soon." The four of them ate rice and spinach and lentils in silence. Naima made herself chew and swallow, longing to fling herself on her mat and cover her face. But after lunch, Father took her hand and led her out into the bright, hot light. "Look at our alpanas, Naima." "I did already, Father." "Look closely." Naima let her eyes dwell on the fading patterns that Mother and Rashida had hastily invented for the contest. She stifled a groan. She hadn't cared much on International Mother Language Day, but now the mistakes made her feel even worse. "Do you think you can improve our alpanas?" Father asked. "The contest's over, Father," Naima said. "What's the use of fixing them now? We lost the prize." "Don't do it for the prize," Father said. "Make them right for their sake." He dropped a kiss on her and climbed on the cycle seat. "Tell Mother not to wait up. I'll head to the repair shop once the customers get scarce." Naima watched him pull away in the beat-up rickshaw, her heart sinking. Mother's bangle would be gone by the time he got home. She turned to frown once more at the alpanas on the threshold. The patterns were so off balance. If they'd added a square in this corner and one more paisley on the other two, the weight of the whole design would have worked better. Rashida was standing at the door. Silently, she handed her sister the leftover white rice powder paste, the brushes, the colored paints made from burnt earth, lentils, and spices. Then she turned and disappeared. Before Naima could stop herself, her mind began to dance with colors, shapes, sizes, balance, symmetry, patterns. Soon her hands were flying to keep up. She painted for a while, humming under her breath, forgetting everything but her work. Then she sat back and took stock of what she had done. The revised alpanas on the step didn't look like the design she might have invented if she'd started from scratch. Those would have been good. But as she looked closely, Naima had to admit the truth, even to herself. These might actually be better. Chapter 9. The idea came wheeling into her mind as though it had been waiting for the chance. She was still the best alpana painter in the village, wasn't she? Surely painting rickshaws wasn't much harder than designing alpanas. Why couldn't she work for the rickshaw painter in exchange for the rickshaw repair? "Think this through, Naima," she warned herself sternly. Men in the village sometimes traded work with each other. Salim had burned garbage the week before in exchange for roof repairs on his family's hut. The rickshaw repair shops in Naima's village always hired a boy or two as helpers. Naima pulled the white ribbon from under the sleeve of her salwar kameez. After tying it in a bow around her braid, she swung the braid in front of her shoulder and waited for Salim to drive by. She saw his eyes widen as he picked up her signal. Making sure Mother and Rashida were still asleep, she slipped away to meet him. The banana leaves stirred up a breeze as Salim pushed through them. "Naima! I was so glad to see that ribbon again. Why have you been avoiding me?" For the first time in her life, Naima couldn't meet his eyes. Are we still friends?" Salim asked. Naima looked up and saw the familiar nut-brown face, the dark eyebrows that met in the middle of Salim's forehead, the almond eyes full of concern. "We'll always be friends," she said. Salim's teeth gleamed like the inside of a coconut. "So what's your new plan?" he asked. "How'd you know I have a plan?" He shrugged. "I've known you ever since you were born, Naima. Some of your ideas are crazy, but you always think of something." and a few of them are really good. They are? Like what? You invented that new color for alpanas by mixing crushed marigold petals with papaya rinds, remember? That's one reason you won the prize last year. And you came up with our secret signal, too, which nobody's figured out yet. Naima smiled for what felt like the first time in a long while. Salim was right. Some of her ideas did work. So what have you come up with this time? He asked. He looked doubtful as he listened to her explanation. You'll be in heaps of trouble when your parents find out, he said. They'll never let you go to the shop again. How are you going to earn enough to pay for the repairs? I have the rest of this afternoon and all evening to paint, don't I? I can pay for a small part of the repairs at least. When Father arrives, I'll just show him my work. There's a chance he might let me go back and earn the rest, Salim. He wants to save Mother's bangle as much as I do. But you've never painted rickshaws before, Naima. Alpanas are different. Naima was silent. A part of her mind had been wondering the same thing ever since she came up with the plan. Could she paint a rickshaw? Salim stood up suddenly. You should give it a try. Sitting around doing nothing is harder for you than making mistakes and getting in trouble. I'll help you do this, Naima. Before she could say anything, he ran out of the banana grove. She couldn't believe how quickly he returned, carrying a bundle under his arm. Nobody's awake yet, he said, but you'll need to hurry and be careful. Our villages are safe, Naima said. I'll be fine. You'll be a stranger there, and it's about an hour's walk away. I wish I could drive you, but I have to get some paying fares. Father's going to wonder already what I've been doing all afternoon. Naima tugged the white ribbon off her braid. Here, this is for you. For me? Why? It's a present, a keepsake, to remember that we're friends, even if we can't meet here as often as we used to. Now you leave first, and I'll come out after a few minutes. As she walked back to the hut, Salim drove by. He rang the bell and waved, making sure she saw the strip of white gleaming around his wrist. The single room of the hut was dim and hushed. Mother and Rashida's sleeping bodies hadn't moved. Naima knew that they wouldn't start to worry until it got dark. Mother sometimes allowed Naima to visit a cousin on the other side of the village, and Naima had forgotten to ask for permission once or twice before heading out. She was counting on Mother, thinking that she'd forgotten again. She opened the bundle Salim had handed her. Inside she found a cap, a lungi cloth, and a kurta shirt. They were the fancy set that he wore to the mosque. Silently she took off her salwar kameez and put on the boy's clothes, tucking her braid carefully under the cap.